Hi everybody, this is chapter 2, something we should have done a long time ago, why it's okay to carry a revolver. And in this video we're just going to have a discussion here between Ethan and myself, because we do have some differing views on carry guns. And what you see in front of us here, a lot of these are our carry guns, some of them have been our carry guns, and some of these are just historical guns to discuss, you know, the origins of our preferred type of carry gun. But anyway, we did this video once about 4 years ago. I think it was our first video that's still, our first full-length video that's still up on the channel. So what you're looking at here is basically evolution of 25 years of our three brothers, 25 years basically of our carrying, with me being the one that's had guns the longest. But Caleb's not here, so we're just going to talk about his carry guns for him. But anyway, let's start out just kind of with where our discussion is today. I've migrated to double action revolvers. I spent the last 10 years shooting almost exclusively 1911s and single actions. And we will get into why that's okay here in just a little bit. Remember, this video is why it's okay to carry a revolver. You've migrated the other way. Where have you ended up today?
Everybody's going to hate me for this, but I do like to carry a polymer frame, striker fired 9mm, and a paddle holster.
Like this one?
No.
Oh,
That's not a 9mm either.
No, it's a 40.
That's a 40.
It's even better.
It's a 40.
So, let's just start right now where we're at today. What's your carry gun right now?
Right now, what I've been carrying,
Your go-to grab.
and I carried a lot, is the ARX Delta Gen 2 in 9mm, and I'm carrying this in a modified Glock 19 Bulldog paddle holster, Serpa style. The reason why I like this one is because I found out that if you're going to carry a gun, it needs to be comfortable, and it needs to be, how do I put this? It needs to be convenient, because if it's not convenient and it's not comfortable, I'm lazy. I'm more than likely going to at some point be like, I don't feel like doing that right now, and I won't carry it, and that'll be the time I need it. So I like this. This is my, like I said, it doesn't matter if I'm wearing my blue jeans, a business suit, or my pajamas. I can always throw that paddle holster around my waistband and, yep, go to work. And, you know, we got retention here like that. But yeah, I got 15 rounds in this magazine. I also carry one of my mag pouches I got from the Army. This is a Bianchi. And in one mag pouch, I got a 21 round magazine. And then in that mag pouch, I've got a Coast flashlight. So, yeah, that's what I carry. And I'm shooting a Hornady Critical Duty.
Okay, so I would say you have plenty of ammunition there to take care of anything you would ever run into.
Yeah.
So, unlike what probably a lot of people believe, I also have a little bit of affection for a certain polymer Wonder 9 myself. And that is this one right here. And this is the Ruger Security 9 over just about anything else, especially like back during the Summer of Love when I knew I was going to have to go to Wichita or some big city where there were rallies and whatnot going on. But I really do like the feel of this gun. It's not quite a 1911 grip, which I'm very used to 1911s, been shooting them for decades. But if I have to shoot one of these, it's probably going to be this Ruger Security 9. I really do prefer this trigger. Some people hate this trigger, but I'm not a fan of the Glock trigger. And so I found that both this ARX and this Security 9 have triggers that I can handle pretty well. As a matter of fact, I can do the Ken Hackathorn church drill with that ARX, and I can actually pull off decent shots at 15 yards in under 5 seconds. I can make a double headshot at 15 yards in under 5 seconds from a chair, turn around, run 3 yards, spin around, make the shot. But yeah, all this is to say, neither of us are against these style of pistols in any way, shape, or form. If you go back on the channel, you'll even find some reviews of some Glocks we've had, and basically everything under the sun.
I've traded in all my Glocks though, because this does everything that a Glock can do, except better, and it's smaller. And in the words of Paul Harrell, this one fits my hand better than that one does.
So, like I said, all that to say, we don't necessarily deride these guns. Ethan carries one every day. And, by the way, he's military trained. He's been in some situations where he's had to fire a gun. But you know what? This is what he prefers. Now, let's talk about what I prefer today. Now, I've only been stepping into this gun, I will admit it, for only about 3 weeks. I've got around 600 rounds through it, but right now I'm in a 3-inch GP100 44 Special. and I'm carrying it in this cross draw Speed Bees holster, which is a really nice holster for it. This is not my first GP100. I've had a love affair of GP100s for years, but seems like the triggers are different on them. My older GP100, I had a 6-inch 357 Magnum I carried a lot, and it had about a 13-pound double action trigger. This one has about a 12-pound double action trigger. It's much easier to shoot. So when I first got this, it was the day after Thanksgiving, I believe. I went out. It was a full moon night, and we just had a fresh fallen snow. And I took this thing out, put 400 rounds through it. It has that green fiber optic sight. I was able to catch low light. And I really just kind of fell in love with this gun, and I've been carrying it every day since. Probably will carry it for quite a while. And, of course, one of the reasons I like 44 Special is I have a lot of these hand loads. But my carry loads are Hornady Critical Defense 165 grain. This is the FTX bullet with the red tip. They actually perform pretty well. And there's a reason that I want those. This is my church security gun. And when you're talking about things like church security, I don't really like the idea of, even though I like small pocket pistol revolvers, 38s, I like non-fixed sights. We're going to talk about one of those guns here in a minute. It's one of my, or I should say fixed sights. It's one of my absolute favorites. And we're going to talk about it just in a minute because it inspired a lot of this. But church security, I want a good, easy fiber optic front sight to pick up, rear sight, and I want a good heavy bullet. It's pretty heavy, but I know that this bullet won't go all the way through and hurt somebody on the other side. That being said, we're going to move into some other guns and reasons that we carry them that would not be good for church security. But anyway, so that's where I'm at right now. Ethan is at the polymer Wonder Pistol era in his life. And I get a lot of comments on the channel, people saying, let's just address this. People will comment and say, why in the world would you carry 6 shots? I want my 16 plus chances. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, as somebody who carries a 15 round and a 21 round magazine, guys, I'm really not planning on dumping all of those rounds into my target. My plan is to put 1 or 2 rounds into them. Well, basically, put enough rounds into them that they stop shooting back. However many it takes, that is a 9mm. So generally, I work in rule of 3. I put 2 in the break the axle, shoot them in the pelvis twice, and then upper chest or head, whatever the case may be for vest. But yeah, I'm really hoping I'm not going to have to use more than 3. However, I do also understand that we are living in a different time frame. My biggest fear, with a wife and little kids, is going to Walmart or something and running into an MS. You know what I'm talking about there. Mm-hmm. And for that scenario, me personally, I know that I'm probably going to be facing up against somebody who's wearing body armor, who's going to have a rifle with at least 30 rounds in it. And yeah, I'm planning on making a headshot because armor. But it is very comforting to have a 15-round magazine and a 21-round magazine on hand. Not that I'm just going to be sitting there, boom, 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 spraying and praying, because that's a good way to shoot bystanders.
Yeah. And this is where you and I are going to differ a lot, because I may see the inside of a Walmart once every 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I never go past the gas station in the little town, basically. And our gas station that we attend has a sign that says, open carry is permitted. Please, if you have to draw your gun, use judicial marksmanship, I believe is what the sign said. So I, on average, will see 3 people a day. Actually, maybe 2. You and my wife. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll see my nieces and nephews for a minute, but I can go weeks with just seeing 2 people. Mm-hmm. And so that is why I feel that my needs are met with a 6 or even a 5-shot revolver, whereas with your job and the way you do military things and whatnot, you're spending a lot of time in big cities, on and off military bases, and just traveling a lot. So you're running into a lot more people than I am.
Yeah, I do spend a lot of time in bigger cities, a lot more time with the military. So, yeah, that's another. But all that being said, not to interrupt you, and you're going to agree with this, magazine capacity is no excuse for poor marksmanship.
Absolutely.
So, in the words of Wyatt Earp, what is it? Speed is fine. Accuracy is final.
Yes. Very much so. And that's why I feel like a lot of people, especially from the comments I get, especially on my why I carry a revolver video, I did not go and go short. I did get a lot of that. You're outdated. You're going to be running into the Mad Max motorcycle gang.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to... I have an AK. I have an AR. If I need to get into that situation, that's where I'm going to be carrying it a long time before. But for everyday carry, let's talk about... all right, we know where you've been. We know where I've been as far as how we've got to these revolvers that we're carrying today. You're carrying the AREX mostly. I'm carrying this 44 GP100. Where did you start? What was your first true carry gun, would you say, on this table?
I had to think about it for a second. Actually, my first true carry gun isn't here. I forgot to grab it. It was a little 32 PPK knockoff. A firearm I've actually had to fire back in a self-defense situation. And I can tell you, facing off against an AR-15 with a 32 auto is not a good day.
Nobody was hurt, by the way.
Nobody was hurt, no. But rounds were exchanged, and I'm really, that was whenever I decided I really needed to bump it up past the little dentist drill of a 32 auto.
So, we don't have it here, but it's basically, it's a lot like this Colt Pocket model. This is a 32 auto. This drives as a 32 auto. Now, both of these are Caleb's, and he's even been known to carry them from time to time as backup guns, even this little Dryza. This gun's 100 and, what would you say, 100 years old, 115 years old or so?
That one's, it's about 105,
This one's
110.
made, I think, in 1912. And he has been known to carry these, and there's a reason for it. They fit in a pocket holster, and they go right in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, what do you get? 6-8 rounds of 32 automatic is still better than a sharp stick.
It is.
And if you place those shots in the brain, grapefruit, or whatever you want to call it, you're probably going to be all right. But these are not, even though these are semi-autos in fairly high capacity, these would not be my first choice as an everyday carry. How about you?
No.
Even, as you said, you've moved away from the 32s.
Yeah, and even in the one situation I'm thinking of, where I had to exchange fire with a 32 auto versus an AR-15, I can tell you this, I would have rather had this 357 Magnum than this 9mm because it was over 200 yards away. So, yeah.
Well,
But if you're talking about, going back to your question, my first real carry gun, not that one,
all the time.
would have been this ATI 1911 GIE, and this one is actually clear. But I carried this gun for quite a while. I couldn't tell by all the holster wear on it. The grips are something that my wife gave me, some Celtic crosses. I carried this gun for quite a while, but I ran into a bit of a problem with it. And the problem was that 45 auto, you see, I either reload or I buy in bulk on my ammo. And the problem with 45 auto is, in a 1911 especially, is if you reload for it, it's really hard to find your brass when you're done, and if you go to buy it in bulk, good luck because it's expensive.
We don't shoot at an indoor range like
No.
ever. So, well, maybe you do from time to time, but
Not hardly.
so generally we're out in the snow and the mud and the grass, and that brass is a premium sometimes, and that's one advantage the revolver is going to have over the semi-auto, in my opinion. If you're a reloader, it's way easier to find brass for. Now, my carry story started a lot longer before yours, I would say, probably 10 years or so. And so I actually started by packing around my brother-in-law's 357 Ruger Blackhawk. And that was cool. That gun's he's had it for a long time, and I fell in love with the Blackhawk at that point. But I didn't carry it that much because obviously it wasn't mine. And so I remember when I was 19, 20 years old, I wanted to be real super tactical. And that was when these were first coming on the market. And it wasn't this one in particular. This is the 40 caliber high point. But one of my first semi-autos, not the very first, but one of my first semi-autos was a 45 ACP high point. That gun was planted in a river on accident and nobody cried.
Yep.
Caleb was carrying it in his pocket and dropped it crossing a river one time on a hike, and honestly it was just one of those things. That gun was very reliable actually, and it shot good. This 40 we found was not as reliable, but we've had, I don't even know where the holsters are for these. It's been so long since
You can tell that one hasn't been carried in a while by the amount of dust on it.
This is Caleb's, and it just basically hangs on the wall. We use it as a, we've done a video on it, but we use it as a point of reference. My first actual semi-auto that I ever owned was one of these, Davis P380.
Yep.
I think I gave $50 for that one. I think, and we've had 3 of them. This is the third. I think we gave $44 for it. It's not worth $44.
That one right there, $26.
It's not worth $26. Maybe as a club, but these things are just, they're kind of, I think that Davis is part of the Ring of Fire firearms. You know, you got your Ravens and whatnot.
The Ravens, the Jennings, the Bricos, and then the Davis arms.
Yeah. Now,
and I would even say High Point's out of that ring. High Point at least works.
Mind you, this was a long time ago. Glocks were a thing, but nobody in my area was talking about them. I had some friends about the time I'd been through both of these guns that were like, you need to get into a Glock. You need to get into a Glock. And I thought I wanted to get into Glocks then because, you know, when you're young, everything's got to be tactical then. You got to have the most ammo, easiest to shoot. And so they brought a bunch of Glocks down, a couple buddies of mine, and we went to try them out. And somebody told me at that point that basically if you didn't own a Glock, you were stupid and that 1911s were junk. And it was one of those deals where my friends were talking about them, and it really came across like these guys got really arrogant about their firearms. And I was like, but my grandpa's had 1911 since World War II, and they work. And that was when I realized these guys were brand new to firearms. I mean, I knew they were, but they'd never even fired a 1911, and they automatically assumed that anything that wasn't a Glock was not going to be very good. And so just the demeanor that they took just in those couple of weeks I was thinking about buying it. And then I got to looking around, this was really early YouTube days. I got to looking around like maybe 2006 or 7. I got to looking around and there were videos where people were just trashing everything that wasn't a Glock. And it kind of got my heckles up a little bit because I was like, wait a minute, what about the Blackhawk that I carried for so long that was such a good gun? What about the 1911? And I realized most of these Glock fanboys had no experience with anything that wasn't a Glock. And the Glocks are good guns, don't get me wrong. I've shot a bunch of them, you've had a couple. And I don't have anything against them. It just really, the people that had them drove me away.
The one thing I've learned about the Glock, if you're going to carry a Glock, you need to carry it stock. And by that, I mean, and I had this discussion with a guy at Drill the other day, and he's like, you ever carry a Glock? I'm like, oh yeah, I had a 26, a 19, and a 17. And I was like, I've sold all of them. Namely because, as I stated before, this does everything that those do, except for better at a much cheaper price. And I told him, he was like, well, what kind of trigger did you put in it? I said, I didn't put a trigger in it. Why not? I said, honestly, if I'm going to carry a striker-fired handgun that has no external safety, I want it about a 5-6 pound trigger. Because I can work that trigger fairly well, and I'm going to have a less likely chance of shooting myself under pressure under the draw. So, because if you hadn't noticed, I use a lot of these Serpa style holsters where you have the trigger finger retention. And even when I carry the 1911, when I carry it, it is with the I'll go ahead, it's clear, but when I carry it round in the chamber, hammer back, and on safe. And some guys, they carry these,
Duke Fraser production holster, by the way.
They take them off safe and they carry them with a round in the chamber like a Glock. And you can't do that with something like a 1911 because it's got a very light trigger. But yeah, so that's one thing, a little tangent about Glocks. I've had Glocks, I've sold them all. This is my Glock killer. And it works well. And I'm thousands of rounds. Like, that's, you're talking about ammunition. One of the reasons I like 9mm as far as an autoloader goes is because I bought a ton of 9mm whenever it was dirt cheap, and I've got thousands of rounds of 9mm. I can shoot basically 9mm for the rest of my life, and not worry about saving brass.
Obviously, after I moved away from, I wasn't going to get the Glock. I moved away from those two semi-autos. They were cheap. They were junk. The High Point's good, obviously, some of them, but like I said, when that one was lost, no tears were shed. And I actually, instead of listening to my peers, my younger friends, you know, the 20-year-old guys, I went around and I asked some of the old cowboys I knew, and I knew the answer because just about generally I would say in this area, 90% of your older cowboys that actually carry a gun are going to carry a Ruger Blackhawk.
Yep.
And they're either in 357 or 44 mag. And my brother-in-law had them, all the neighbors had them. These guys carry them for a reason. First of all, they like the Colt style, but the Colt guns, say the Uberti, they're just not up to the quality, I hate to say it, of a Ruger. Ruger's built different. Obviously, it's not trying to be a Colt. It has that transfer bar safety. You can carry 6. And everybody was like, get you a 357 or 44 mag. And there's a reason for that. One, it's in single action. At the time, I was on horseback every day. We were doing, we'd do 30-mile cattle drives a couple times a year, a couple days in the saddle. When you're doing when it's a surprise to the animal, things are already nervous. Say if it was a wild animal in front of you, he's already nervous. When that gun goes off, jumps, bucks are probably going to happen. Single action is the safest gun to carry on horseback. And I'll show you here on this Uberti because obviously, whenever you cock the hammer, you can pull the trigger. After that hammer's down, no amount of pulling this trigger, by the way, I cleared this beforehand, no amount of pulling this trigger is going to make that gun go off again. I personally, and I was brought up this way, believe that you probably shouldn't even carry a double action horseback because when that horse goes to jump, you're going to squeeze them reins with this hand, and whatever's in this hand, usually I see the gun either dropped or people just automatically clinch up and the gun goes off, and that's not safe for you, and it's not safe for the horse. So I've had many, many people ask me, why in the world do you guys carry single actions? Because in some situations, it's the only safe option. You don't want to shoot that horse in the head or yourself in the knee. And if you get thrown off, it's even a worse situation if you got that gun in your hand. A double action, it's a little safer. A Glock, I would say absolutely no, because that trigger, you're very high chance of a negligent discharge on horseback.
There's a high chance of a negligent discharge just in general. I mean, there's watching Larry Vickers do a video training with some Russian guys, and it's not a Glock, it's their version of a Glock, it's a Grok. Yeah, it's literally what it's called, the Grok or the Grak. And there's a video of a guy, he's sitting here at the low ready, and they're doing some stress training, and he gets spooked, and just from right here, boom, NDs into the ground, and then just kind of looks around, then he keeps doing his thing, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a scary situation. So you remember when I didn't choose the Glock, you remember what gun I bought?
Let's see here.
It was my first true centerfire revolver that I purchased on my own.
Blackhawk?
Yes, a Super Blackhawk, 10.5-inch stainless gun, and 44 Magnum. And I had a long time. I killed deer with that gun. I carried that gun on a regular basis when all my friends had put their Glocks in their drawers and kind of forgot about them.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was where I was, and honestly, after that I was on Ruger, so I got an SR 1911, had 2 of them, carried those for a very long time and enjoyed them. Kind of stepped away from them and went back to single actions and spent basically the last 10 to 15 years I've shot just single actions and 1911s. That's where I'm at in my journey. Till recently, I've moved up to trying shorter barrel double actions when I'm not on horseback.
So, I'm going to go to my second most common carry gun I got here. This one is loaded. This is my Smith & Wesson Model 13-2, and if you couldn't tell, this gun has gotten a lot of carry time. I mean, I've worn the finish off the end of the barrel, and it is loaded. I'll go ahead and clear that right quick. 38 specials. If you couldn't tell, I've done some work to this gun. I have a video series on making these these grips because I'm very, very particular about how my pistol fits my hand. And these grips, I made these. It was one of our earlier video series. And this gun, I can sit here and I can, if you look at my sights up here, I've got this ramp that I've painted orange, and then I've actually marked in the middle with a very small green line for extra precision, and I can stack rounds with this handgun in single action, and I come pretty close in double action. Like I said, the grip on this gun is just phenomenal.
Duke can wait till this video's done.
But I've actually taken this gun, and I had a friend who was a Army friend. He was a tanker, and he wanted a carry gun. It was, as Garrett called it, the Summer of Love, aka 2020, the the very exciting year. And I was on orders with this guy, and we were out, and he wanted to shoot, or he wanted a handgun, because he was like, yeah, this climate, he's like, in this political climate and everything going on, he's like, I need a good carry gun. He's like, I don't even own a gun. And I was like, well, what are you good at? And he's like, I'm okay with the Beretta M9. And I said, okay. So we went and we looked, and he went, and I asked him, I was like, do you think you'd be good with a revolver? And he's like, no, I don't want a revolver. He's like, I'm good with a semi-auto. I'm like, okay, cool. We went and got a, I think it was a Stoker semi-auto, which I didn't even know was a thing. But, you know, we went and ran it, and it ran really good. But his groups were this big. And that was user error, I will say. But I went ahead and I said, well, just for fun, I just loaded up a 38 Specials. I said, take this out there, try it, and he loaded it up, and he did it on single action, and his groups went to this. And he said, boy, I sure am regretting not getting a good revolver like that one. And I said, this one's a keeper, and Model 13s are pretty cheap.
Let me look at that, because everybody knows that I'm the Colt guy. In the 1800s, I like the Smith & Wessons less than the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
I will be the first to admit this Model 13 is literally one of my favorite handguns of all time. And it's just, it points well, even with non-adjustable sights. It's got a great trigger. We're cutting some footage in right now of us shooting this gun. It can be shot really fast, even with hot rounds, because it's got good weight.
Yep.
Some people are concerned about the forcing cones with really, really hot 357s, mostly with light bullets traveling fast. I don't see that as an issue with this gun.
Yeah.
Especially when you're shooting 158 grain 357 Magnum, a little slower but heavier bullet. But I really fell in love with double actions through the use of this gun right here. And there have been times when, against my better judgment, I didn't carry a gun one day, and some things went down where I needed one, and I happened to be right over by Ethan's house, and I could reach for a whole rack of semi-autos he had there. These aren't all the semi-autos we have by a long shot. But I could have reached for a whole rack of semi-autos, and I just found myself grabbing this gun, stick it in my pocket, away we go. If trouble arises, I know 6 shots of 357 Magnum from this gun will handle it.
Yeah. The chances of somebody taking something like this and then firing it, because if you look at a lot of people who start learning, if they're not taught well or they're just not very bright.
By the way, these guns were cleared beforehand.
Yeah, it's all clear. They'll fire it, and then, the chances of them firing a round off out of a single action like this and then flipping around and shooting you, it's got to be intentional. Whereas something like this, if they fire it and you put several rounds in the magazine, and they, boom, and then they could come over and they might shoot somebody.
That's one of the downfalls of 1911s. That's one of the worst. I've actually been training a younger guy once on a 1911, and he didn't put it on safety or anything, and I was looking right down the barrel just like that, and that was scary. But yeah, that's one reason to carry single action. Another reason, not necessarily just single actions, but since you're going to be on horseback anyway, and you're going to be working with big, heavy animals. A lot of people talk about grizzly trouble. We don't have grizzly trouble where we're at. But we do have cattle trouble, and a lot of people don't know this. There's about 11 people a year killed in the continual North American continent between United States and Canada. 11 people killed by bears every year. That's all bears. But there's 25 to 30 people get killed every year by cattle. Bulls, big bulls. A bear can get, a big Kodiak, something get up there 1,700 pounds. Bull can get to 2,200 pounds, and we deal with them on a daily basis. So first of all, you're on horseback, so double actions, that's a scary thing. Semi-auto like a Glock, that's a no-go for me. It's just too easy for that second shot to go off. So my options come down to something like this Blackhawk here. And the reason I have this Blackhawk is it's a small, easy to carry. It's just a 4 5/8 with a regular grip. It's a 45 Colt. But you can put a 45 Colt round in this that will rival and even surpass standard factory 44 Magnum ammo. This is a 315 grain hard cast bullet right here, doing 1,250 feet per second out of this revolver, this little 4 5/8 inch barrel. And that will save your life from a bull. A 2,000 pound bull that has you on the ground. A lot of people don't realize it. Think about Lane Frost. He was killed in 4 seconds by a bull. Of course, that was a goring situation, but they can crush you just as fast and kill you dead if you're by yourself in the pasture. And you want something like this. I'm not going to trust my life to a 10 millimeter in that situation.
Yeah.
10 millimeters, great round. People like it for certain bears, but if you got to get through 4 feet of mad bull,
and I'm just here to tell you guys, I hate to break somebody's feelings, but I guarantee you this Model 29 with 44 Magnum is much more powerful than your Glock in 10 millimeter. Yes, you would be surprised at how many people out there think that 10 millimeter is more powerful than a 44 Magnum.
And by the way, hand loaded, you can get 44 Magnum up to these.
Oh yeah, too. And especially shooting something out of this 3/8 inch barrel,
it's going to put a lot of pressure.
You're almost shooting a carbine.
So the thing is, even if you had that Glock in 10 millimeter, if that bull's laying on top of you, crushing you to death, or that grizzly bear is clawing you to death and laying on you like they do, what's your odds of getting that semi-auto up into them? Because there's not a lot of room when they're completely crushing you for you to move your hands. What's the odds of you getting that semi-auto in there and getting a shot off compared to a revolver? I'll show the video. We tested this out just earlier today.
All right, so here's just a little test, and obviously this has been talked about over and over again to death, but I just kind of want to run a little test on it. I have in my hands here an Arex Delta 9 millimeter. This is the Gen 2. And yeah, so see, I do know a little bit about these 9 millimeters, carry them from time to time. But now, supposing if the cameraman's here and I'm flipped around upside down and this is a 1,700 pound bear or a 2,000 pound bull on top of me, killing me, and my gun is down here, how is this going to work? Now, this gun is unloaded, but it is cocked and ready to go. So let's see if we get a strike, if we can even make this work. All right, so obviously no. Let's not put so much pressure. Nope, not even there. So providing my elbow's not digging into the ground, I don't want to point it at myself, so this elbow's so far out behind me, this might not even be an option if an animal is on top of you attempting to kill you. But let's say maybe like this. There it was, a strike. All right, so we're gonna try that again. This time I have my GP 144 Special, and this will work obviously with any revolver, but this is what I'm carrying today. Bull is on top of me. Shove it into the bull, and you make a shot. But it is possible, much more possible to do with a revolver than a semi-auto. That's one reason that a person like me who deals with large animals on a daily basis might consider a revolver a little bit better. More likely than not, the only time you're actually going to shoot an animal that's attempting to kill you is when they're already on top of you, possibly killing you.
So as you can see, that's why I carry a single action revolver when I'm on horseback, a double when I'm not on horseback, and always in a caliber, even in 44 Special with a heavy load, that will at least start to save your life. If I'm working with bulls, I'm going to this heavy duty 45 Colt or that 44 Magnum every time above even a double action, one of these. Obviously the 44 Magnum's in double action. The only thing I had against that in that situation is it's such a long barrel, it might be difficult to get there.
Yeah, this pistol was got because I always wanted a Model 29, and it's just cool. And yeah, I've carried this gun before. I've got a Bianchi shoulder holster, which actually carries pretty nice for an 8 3/8 inch 44 Magnum. But one of the perks of this gun is I've carried it in church before in a shoulder holster like this. And one of the perks of this is if I had to deal with an active shooter, and if they were wearing soft body armor, which most of the time they are, they rarely go and get plates. I can do a Mozambique drill with this gun with full powered 44 Magnum. And I guarantee you that even though it may not penetrate, it's going to hit that soft armor and it will still put them on the ground. They are not going to like it.
Yeah, and that's, to me, one of the advantages of the revolver or the semi-auto, unless you're carrying a Desert Eagle for some reason.
And even then,
it's easier to carry that than the Desert Eagle.
The revolver is always going to be able to take a higher pressure load. A matter of fact, people don't realize this. Revolvers are still being used by an active military to this day. The Russians just introduced a new anti-material revolver. Yeah, I think it's like a 54 caliber.
Huh.
And I think it shoots a rifle round. So,
yeah. The long and short of it is what you're comfortable with. And for years, what I was most comfortable with, and still am, is this 1872 open top. I put around 2,000 rounds of hot black powder cartridges through it.
Mhm.
I can hit reliably at 100 yards, an 8-inch plate. I can hit semi-reliably an 8-inch plate at 150, and occasionally can hit a torso target at 350.
Mhm.
I've done it on video, and I've done it more than once, but it's a very hard feat to pull off. And that's not with, obviously, the big heavy Ruger loads. This is just with black powder, but we'll still get the job done. It's still putting out 600 foot-pounds of energy almost. Black powder round pushing 40 grains of powder, pushing this out over 1,000 feet per second out of a 7.5-inch barrel, 255 grain bullet. Will get the job done. Safe to carry on horseback, plenty of sight radius, and just I'm so comfortable with it. I know I can hit and I can kill with it, and I can do it almost as fast as I can with a double action. What is this?
Oh, the Victory model.
Is this in 38-200?
Yes.
So this is a 38 Smith & Wesson. This is one of Caleb's. We have a couple of these actually. One very much like it that Ethan carries, but it's in 38 Special. Let's
Yep.
talk about our 38 Special go-tos. My dad carries a snubby 38 Special every day, but these are our carry 38s. I don't carry a 38 obviously, but Ethan does from time to time.
Yep. I've
And
carried this one.
these are almost identical except for the chambering. This is a World War II.
That is
lanyard
a
loop.
British World War II Lend-Lease gun. Smith & Wesson had a contract. Just a real short Smith & Wesson story here. Smith & Wesson made a contract with the British for semi-automatic rifles. And needless to say, the owner of Smith & Wesson at that time, or the CEO, was not very bright. And he could not fulfill this contract. So what they did was, a new guy came in. He wasn't even the CEO. He was a guy that was designing toilet floats.
I like how the throwdown on this 38-200 is literally halfway back down the cylinder.
And that pistol, Smith & Wesson was about to become a British company because they were going to take the company and make their own stuff. And that little pistol right there saved Smith & Wesson. It was a compromise.
So obviously, these two look identical, except for that one's about 40 years older than this one.
Yeah, this is a 5-screw, and this one is a 4-screw.
And so, what we're looking at here, besides this one,
It's a 5-screw too.
this is the World War II gun, but this is a military and police. Not like we think of M&P Shield today, obviously, but this gun is very much likely what you're going to see in literally every police holster. Well, I would say actually about half of them because we got this gun right here. But in the early 1900s, this is going to be the cop gun, or this one. And we got these at the same time. Caleb actually owns this one now, but we both wanted long barrel 38 Special. I wanted the Colt. He wanted the Smith & Wesson. And these are great carry guns, especially this one. Now that I've actually loaded the ammo up to where it needs to be, and it's not shooting 8 inches high. I don't know if that one ever did shoot 8 inches high.
No, this one was always pretty point aim, point impact.
But this one needs a really fast bullet to get it down to the point of impact, or point of aim, point of impact. But I'm not a fan of this per se. I mean, I'm a fan of it, both of them. Let's say that they would get the job done. But if I'm going to carry a double action, I like to carry in a 357 or one that has that ability, especially if it's this size.
I will say this though, this is, out of all these carry guns that I have carried, this is the second most carry friendly gun. I would say it's even more than that Model 13, because that Model 13 with the bull barrel, it's just, there's a weight difference here.
By the way, guys, I'm not scared to shoot low N plus P through either of these guns.
Yeah.
They were designed at a time when 38 Special was way hotter than it is now. This one is in a El Paso saddlery holster, and I really don't care for this holster. Caleb carries it sometimes, but it's got a very far forward cant. But actually, I can shoot these guns really, really fast, and they're really good for that. But like I said, I personally need a 44, 45, or a 357 Magnum at the least.
Yeah.
For my carry needs. Not for everybody. Some people could carry these and get along just fine. They're not dealing with large animals that might kill them.
Yeah.
You're carrying yours in a shoulder holster there.
I'm carrying mine, and this is actually the shoulder holster that came. No, this one didn't come with the gun. I bought it with the gun. I bought this used on Gunbroker for like $5. And it is an actual Smith & Wesson 43-36 holster. And this fits everything from K-frames. I've carried the Schofield in here, which I don't have the Schofield with me today. But I have carried the Schofield as well. I find it, for a church gun, That's a pretty viable gun.
You can reload it very fast with speed loaders.
Oh yeah, but yeah, this is actually for this gun, and it works pretty good. You can find
So,
these
what
used
year do
pretty
you
cheap.
think that gun is?
This gun is a 1905 model Smith & Wesson, and it was made in 1918.
Yeah, see, this is a Army Special, which came out in 1907, but this particular one came out in 1926. So
Yeah.
both of them are very far up there, and both of them still work pretty well.
And that's one thing I'm going to say about your revolver versus modern semi-auto debate. You know, not so much for the, well, even kind of the 1911. This pistol is about like 105 years old.
Battle proven.
This pistol, I don't think it's going to be running when it's 105 years old.
Probably not.
So these are much more durable in the long run than something like one of these are. Matter of fact, the Gen 1 Glocks, a lot of them are having really bad problems with the polymer aging and cracking on them from what I'm hearing. Haven't dealt with that personally, but yeah.
Let's talk about pocket pistols.
Something I don't have a whole lot of knowledge in.
Well, this is interesting because you've had a lot more experience with these than I have. These are lemon
Okay.
squeezers.
Yeah, I take that back. I have had 2 pocket pistols that I carried religiously for a long time.
This one's in 32, I believe.
Yes.
And they're actually good little guns if you're not worried about carrying 32, because these top brakes, one of the fastest revolvers to reload, especially if you come up with some little speed loader that can hold the rounds for it, because it's literally a break it open and go. And I like these Smith & Wesson safety models because if you're carrying this in your pocket, a lot of times when people carry, say, a Bulldog or something in their pocket today, or even like a J-frame, if you carry without a holster and you get something in there against that trigger and you push down on it, it'd go off.
You aren't doing that with that.
Not this. This one has a grip safety.
Yep.
That is a very good grip safety.
That gun is literally designed to be carried by a mom in her purse without having to worry about a child getting hold of it and shooting it.
Outside of a 22, this is probably the last place I would go for a carry gun.
I'd say that's about a step above a can of mace.
But, like I said, if you're worried about reloading for some odd reason, you're going to get in a situation where you got to reload. These guns are.
And that's
Open it up, dump it, drop your bullets in, and go.
what I'm going to say is the 2 pocket guns that I've carried, and one of them isn't technically a pocket gun, but the first one I carried was this style. It was a Smith & Wesson New Departure Safety Hammerless, or the Lemon Squeezer. But it was in 38 Smith & Wesson. I still own it. Actually, I've given it to my wife, so I don't technically own it anymore. She calls it her kneecapper. She carries it in her purse. But yeah, I carried one of these religiously for several years in my pocket.
Backup.
And it's a good backup gun. But I mean, the good thing about them is you can drop this thing in your pocket, forget about it, and then you don't have to worry about it going off.
And they come in 38 Smith & Wesson too. So I mean, that's a little better.
And that was what I carried mine in, was 38 Smith & Wesson. Fun fact, I've actually killed a coyote with that little 38 Smith & Wesson pocket pistol.
This is where I would say, even though this is a little bigger, something like this is a better option than that.
Better than this, not better than the 38 Smith & Wesson.
No. So, these are kind of the carry guns that you and I have covered. By the way, guys, I want you to look at this. This holster is brand new. Anybody that tells you they carry like a long-barreled single action, take a look at their holster. And I know you can't see this very well, but they are flat wore out because this one's had a lot of service. This one's even had a lot of service just in the last year, and the gun's beat up, scratched up, the holster's tore up. If you're going to carry a gun like this, it can't be something you care about that much.
I used this one for a long time. I just retired it, and it's pretty.
Look at your 1911
pretty beat.
holster. The
Yeah.
leather's got soft over the years, and
Yep.
it's just, you can tell a carry gun and a carry holster are going to have some wear. A lot of times when you see people talk about, well, I carry a 10 millimeter or something, religiously, take a look at the gun. You can tell pretty quick whether or not they're doing that, or they're stuffing a J-frame snub nose in their pocket to carry when they say they're carrying their Glock.
Yeah, you can tell the difference on the backs of the polymer on these two.
Yeah.
One of them is very shiny. One of them is not.
One other thing I wanted to discuss here is how a lot of people don't realize just how far back, not the single action per se, but the double action and the semi-auto go. A lot of people don't realize the 9mm is an older cartridge than the 45 ACP. Semi-autos go back a long time. Here's a C96, and obviously this isn't a 9mm. Some of them are, not this one.
That's not a red 9.
This is where double actions. These actually gave double actions a good name.
Mhm.
I got nothing against the Luger. Some people don't like certain aspects of it. I know you absolutely love the Luger. Some people don't like the C96 stripper clip fed, but a lot of people, especially police departments in the 19 teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s wouldn't allow semi-autos because whether it be the 1911, that a lot of them were shot to pieces during both World Wars, and by the 1970s they were wore out and had a lot of them had reputations for not working well, or be it these or that. Semi-autos from this era, or say even this Dryza, have a reputation for being underpowered because ammo's not what it is today. They don't have the jacketed, super soft, super expansion ammo.
Yeah.
And unreliable.
Yeah. Which I think is kind of a bit of a myth with the PO8 because I think it's a lot more reliable than people give credit for.
At least that one is, but that
Yeah.
one's not shot to pieces either. That's a nice one.
This is a World War I bring back.
And it's in very nice condition. But cops of the era of the 20th century, especially the department heads, didn't care for that. Hence why we got so many of these up until basically the Glock. The Glock was the thing that changed that in a lot of people's mind. The Beretta, obviously, the Model 92, which we can talk about here in a minute, which you don't have you're not too fond of that.
No, I'm not a big Beretta guy.
I kind of like it, but I haven't shot it extensively.
Yeah, I have.
I
think the ones that I shot were kind of like those 1911s. Might have been a little shot out.
But what a lot of people don't realize is the double action goes back even farther. And this isn't even the first one. The first ones were really Adams. Some pepper boxes were double action, but they weren't the kind of double action that we think of today. But this is one of the earlier ones. This is the Star Revolver. This is a 1858 design, and it is a completely double action cap and ball revolver. And I'm not gonna do that right now because I don't want to land that on a nipple and bend it. But these guns, the Adams came out 1853, I want to say, pretty early. Double action. Double action's been around a long time. By the 1870s, this is an original Thunder and 41 Colt. This is an original double action Lightning and 38 Colt.
You also got the Smith & Wesson No. 3 new model Navy, which is a 44 Russian double action.
And we didn't bring that out.
No.
We have one, but we didn't bring it out. But I find that interesting because if you really look at a lot of the lawmen and outlaws, Wes Hardin had one of these, Billy the Kid ran one of these, a lot of them using double actions, but you still have to run them just like a single action. But, Caleb's going to shoot me for this. Once you get it done, that is one of the toughest double action hammers though triggers I have ever felt. And no, I didn't dry fire that. Once you get it loaded, you can fire them all out to their double action, and people migrated to that really quick, followed quickly by these little Smith & Wesson pocket pistols. So they've both been around a long, long time. Well, we could talk about Caleb's here. We haven't talked about that. Caleb's go-to carry gun, and he's in your Webley holster, which we didn't bring your Webley out of all things.
Yeah.
That's a good one too, Mark 6 Webley. Caleb's is the either new service or the Colt Model 1917. This one's in just 45 ACP, and he is really good with this gun. We'll cut in some footage of him shooting it. But this is a good double action. It's a military double action, so it's a lot heavier. And like I said, this is Caleb's carry gun. We're talking about our carry guns. It's a lot heavier double action than a lot of others, but it takes moon clips in 45 ACP. That's a beast of a revolver, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I shoot it fairly decent. But, yeah.
How does it stack up against the Webley?
Yeah, it's kind of no contest. This is far superior to the Webley.
Yeah.
As much as I love my Webley, this is designed to take moon clips, unlike my Webley. It's 45 ACP, which we were talking about the other day. In World War I want you to name a common issued handgun cartridge. I'm talking common issued. Aside from the Gosser, I can't really think of a handgun cartridge that was more powerful that was in common use in World War I than the 45 ACP.
It's a real round.
Yeah.
Mimics the military black powder load.
And it is more powerful than 9mm.
And by the way, guys, these particular revolvers, when you add this 6-inch barrel, they move that bullet out over 100 feet per second faster than the standard issue 1911. And so even if you're carrying some big hollow point like this that Caleb carries, chances of you getting expansion with this revolver are far better than your standard 1911. This gun really can put it down there, and it can handle a fairly hot load. And that's his carry, followed by his backup that he carries about everywhere because he does work windmills and he works water wells and plumbing. And when you're running into snakes, our little brother Noah was bit by a snake last year, about killed him.
Masagwa.
Caleb carries this Bond Arms 410-45 as a backup, and he actually has an inside the waistband holster and an outside the waistband holster. And I don't care what anybody says, people make fun of these all the time. Inside of 10 yards, these are devastating little guns.
Yep.
And you can get a hot 45 Colt in there, a decent 410 shell.
My favorite thing about this, got this little holster right here. Really don't even need the holster for this. You can drop this into your pocket and away you go.
It even has safety if you want to use
This
it.
is convenient. This is something that I could, every morning when you grab your cell phone, you could grab this and throw it in the other pocket and not even think about it.
Let's talk about Ethan's bug out gun.
Well, it's not really a bug out. I don't call this a bug out bag. This is my emergency bag. It's got a lot of cool things in it. Namely, I got first aid stuff in the front pouch here. I've got cat tourniquets. I've got Israeli bandages.
And you're about out of battery.
Yeah, I'm about out of battery. I got all sorts of cool stuff in there. Quick clot. And in here, I got a Ruger P89.
And you spent some time with that gun.
Yeah, I've spent a little time with this gun. So, yeah, that's my, if I had to grab a bag and go, that's what I've got for that. That way I at least have something if I can't even get to my rifles.
So anyway, guys, we appreciate you watching with us for this amount of time. Thanks for tuning in. Trust in God.
Keep your battery right.
Bye.